The crystal towers of Kethera shook as another blast hit the energy shields above the city. Ambassador Thisara pressed her pale blue hands against the viewing wall of the council chamber and watched the dark ships in the sky rain fire down on her world. The Skarn Empire had come without warning 3 days ago, with enough ships to block out the twin suns. The Vellani had never seen war before. Their people had spent thousands of years building beautiful cities that floated above crystal, lakes and growing gardens that hung in the air like jewels. They made art and music and studied the stars with wonder. Fighting was something they read about in old stories from primitive worlds. The shields are failing, Elder Prithana said in their musical language. Her silver hair moved like water as she turned from the great display that showed their planet. From space. Red dots marked where Skarn ships hung in orbit like angry insects. Our engineers say we have perhaps 2 days before they break through completely. Thisara felt her heart sink. The Skarn had sent a simple message when they arrived. Surrender or die. They wanted Kethera's crystal mines and the rare metals that grew in their floating mountains. The Vellani had politely refused and asked them to leave. The Skarn response was to start shooting. "What do our defense fleets report?" asked another elder, though they all knew the answer. "We have no defense fleets," Prithana said sadly. "We have cargo ships and research vessels and beautiful sailing craft that ride the solar winds for pleasure, nothing that can fight these monsters." The Vellani had always believed that if they were kind and peaceful, the universe would be kind to them in return. They had met 17 other species among the stars and made friends with all of them. They shared their art and their knowledge freely. They thought all intelligent life must be like them deep down. They were learning how wrong they had been. "Send another message to the Galactic Council," suggested Elder Vorthak. "Surely someone will help us." "I have sent 4 messages," Thisara replied. "The Council says they are deeply concerned and monitoring the situation, but no one is sending ships. The Altuvians say they have no military. The Zenthi claim they are too far away. The Corvin Alliance says they cannot risk war with the Skarn Empire." More explosions lit up the sky. Somewhere in the city below, alarms began to sing. The Skarn were testing different parts of the shield, looking for weak spots like a predator circling wounded prey. "There must be someone," whispered Elder Prithana. "Somewhere in this vast galaxy, there must be people who will help." Thisara looked at the communication console that filled one wall of the chamber. It could send messages to every known world in the galaxy. She had been sending careful diplomatic requests to specific governments and known allies. But maybe it was time to try something different. "I could send a general distress call," she said slowly. "Not to any specific world or government. Just broadcast it on all frequencies and hope someone hears it." "Do it," said Elder Prithana without hesitation. "Send it to everyone. Send it to no one. Send it to whoever might be listening." Thisara moved to the console and began to compose the message. She wrote it in Galactic Standard first, then in 12 other languages she knew. She made it simple and clear and full of the desperate hope that someone, somewhere, would care enough to help. "To any who receive this message," she began. "We are the Vellani of the world Kethera in the Zephyr system. We are under attack by the Skarn Empire. Our world has no weapons and no warriors. We are peaceful people who have never harmed anyone. We have perhaps 2 days before our shields fail and our people die. Please, if you have the strength to help and the heart to care, we beg you to come quickly. We can offer nothing in return except our eternal gratitude and friendship." This message will repeat until our communications are destroyed or until help arrives. Please, someone, anyone, help us. She set the message to broadcast on every frequency their transmitters could reach. It would go out like ripples in a pond, spreading through space faster than light, reaching further and further until it touched every corner of the known galaxy. 3 days later, and many light years away, Dr. Park So-young was working the night shift at Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station. It was a quiet job that mostly involved listening to radio signals from distant stars and cataloging them for future study. Most of the signals were natural phenomena like pulsars and solar flares. Sometimes they picked up broadcasts from known alien civilizations, but those were usually just routine traffic between their worlds. She was drinking her fifth cup of coffee and reviewing the automated reports when something unusual appeared on her screen. A signal was coming from the direction of the galactic core, but it was not on any of the standard frequencies used by known species. More interesting, it was clearly artificial and seemed to be repeating. She put on her headphones and listened to the strange musical language. She did not understand the words, but she could hear the emotion behind them. Fear, desperation, hope. Someone was asking for help. Dr. Park, so young, had studied alien languages for 15 years. She had been part of the first contact teams that met the Centauri traders and the Rigel Mining Consortium. She knew how to recognize patterns and translate meanings. This message was not hard to understand once she found the universal mathematical concepts that all intelligent species shared. It took her 2 hours to decode enough of the message to understand what she was hearing. When she did, she sat back in her chair and stared at the screen in shock. Somewhere in the galaxy, an entire species was about to be wiped out, and they were begging anyone who could hear them to save their lives. She reached for her emergency communication device and called the one person on Earth who could authorize. What needed to happen next? Commander Lee Tae-min was asleep in his quarters at Earth Defense Command when his emergency communicator started beeping. He had been dreaming about his childhood home in the mountains of Korea, where the air was clean and the streams ran clear. He woke up instantly, as all soldiers learned to do, and answered the call. Commander, this is Dr. Park So-young at Deep, Space Monitoring. We have a situation that requires immediate attention. What kind of situation, Doctor? We have intercepted a distress call from an unknown alien species. They are under attack and requesting help from anyone who can provide it. The signal is broadcasting on all frequencies and has been repeating for several hours. Commander Lee sat up in his bed and rubbed his eyes. Are we sure this is genuine, not some kind of test or simulation? I am certain, Commander. The linguistic patterns are consistent with natural language evolution. The mathematical references match known universal constants. And the emotional content... She paused. Commander, they are begging for someone to save them from extinction. Send me everything you have, Lee said, already reaching for his uniform. I will review it and contact Earth Defense Command immediately. Within 6 hours, the highest levels of Earth's government and military were meeting in the secure chambers beneath Geneva. President Kim Woo-jin looked tired but determined as she listened to the translated message play through the chamber's speakers. How far away are they? She asked. Approximately 400 light-years, replied Admiral Choi Hyun-woo. With our fastest ships, we could reach them in 5 days. What do we know about this Skarn Empire they mentioned? Nothing, admitted Director of Alien Affairs, Yoon Da-eun. They are not in any of our databases. This might be our first contact with both species. President Kim was quiet for a long moment. Earth had been part of the galactic community for only 30 years. They had made friends and trade partners but had always been careful not to get involved in other worlds' conflicts. They were still learning how things worked out there among the stars, Mr. President, said Commander Lee Tae-min. These people sent their message to everyone in the galaxy. If no one else is helping them, there might be a good reason. We could be walking into a trap or a situation we do not understand. Or, said the President quietly, we could be the only hope an entire species has left. She looked around the room at the faces of Earth's military and political leaders. How many ships could we send? Admiral Choi consulted his tablet. The Third Fleet is currently on patrol near the outer colonies, 47 ships including the carrier Indomitable. If we strip defenses from other sectors, we could assemble perhaps 200 ships. Do it, President Kim said without hesitation. Send everything we can spare. If these people are truly innocent and truly in danger, then we have a moral obligation to help them. Yes, Mr. President, Admiral Choi replied. How should we approach this tactically? Carefully, Commander Lee answered. We go in ready for anything but hoping for the best. These Villani might not be what they seem, and this Skarn Empire might be more dangerous than we know. But if they really are peaceful people asking for help, he stood up straighter. Then we show them what Earth does to bullies. The meeting broke up quickly after that. Orders went out across the solar system to every Earth Defense Force base and ship. Within 18 hours, the largest fleet Earth had ever assembled was jumping into hyperspace, racing toward a distant world where people they had never met were counting down the hours until their civilization died. None of them knew that their decision to help would change everything. None of them knew that the name Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the UEF Indomitable and watched the stars streak past in the strange, twisted light of hyperspace. Behind his flagship, 199 other Earth Defense Force ships traveled in perfect formation through the space between spaces, racing toward a world none of them had ever seen to help people they had never met. Estimated arrival time? He asked Lieutenant Yoon Da-eun at the navigation station. 4 days, 6 hours, Admiral, she replied. We are making better time than expected. The hyperspace currents in this region are unusually stable. Admiral Choi nodded and walked to the tactical display that showed the positions of all ships in the fleet. 200 vessels representing the finest military technology Earth could build. Battleships with armor that could stop asteroid impacts. Carriers loaded with fighters that could dance between enemy fire. Destroyers fast enough to chase down anything that tried to run. Marine assault ships carrying 50,000 of Earth's best soldiers. It was an impressive sight, but Admiral Choi found himself wondering if it would be enough. They knew almost nothing about this Skarn Empire except that they were strong enough to threaten an entire planet. Earth's ships were designed to fight other human vessels or the occasional pirate gang. Nobody knew how they would perform against truly alien technology, Admiral, called Communications Officer Baek Soo-jin from her station. We are receiving multiple transmissions from various alien governments. They seem to be responding to our passage through their territory. Put the first one through. The main screen flickered and showed a reptilian face with large yellow eyes. The creature's scales had a greenish tint and moved nervously as it spoke. Earth vessel. This is Minister Clethen of the Rigel Trade Coalition. We have detected your fleet passing through Coalition space at high speed. Please state your destination and intentions. Admiral Choi stepped forward. Minister Clethen, this is Admiral Choi Hyun-woo of the Earth Defense Force. We are responding to a distress call from the Volani system and pose no threat to Coalition territory or shipping. The alien's eyes grew even wider. Did you say Earth? Defense Force? As in the planet Earth? The Death World? Admiral Choi frowned. Earth is our homeworld, yes. Why do you call it a Death World? Minister Clethen seemed to struggle for words. Admiral, with great respect, you should reconsider this mission. The Skarn Empire is extremely dangerous, and their military is vast. Perhaps it would be better to let the Galactic Council handle this situation through diplomatic channels. The Volani do not have time for diplomacy, Admiral Choi replied. Their shields are failing and their people are dying. Earth has decided to offer assistance. But Admiral, the alien said desperately, surely you understand the risks. Even for your people, this seems like an extreme response to help complete strangers. Thank you for your concern, Minister, but our course is set. The transmission ended, leaving Admiral Choi puzzled. Why had the alien seemed so frightened? And what did he mean by calling Earth a death world? Admiral, we have another transmission coming in, Lieutenant Yoon reported. This one is from the Zenthi Republic. The next alien that appeared on screen was tall and thin with pale blue skin and large black eyes. Unlike the previous caller, this one seemed almost panic-stricken. Earth ships. This is Senator Vorthak of VAR. The Zenthi Republic. We must speak with you immediately about your current mission. I am listening, Senator. Admiral, are you truly planning to engage the Skarn Empire in direct military action? If necessary to protect the Volani? Yes, Senator. Vorthak made a sound that might have been a gasp. Admiral, do you not understand what you are suggesting? The Skarn Empire has conquered 47 worlds. Their military is disciplined, ruthless, and enormous. They have never been defeated in open battle. Then perhaps it is time someone tried, Admiral Choi said calmly. But the cost, the alien continued. Even if you somehow managed to defeat them, the losses would be catastrophic. No species has ever been willing to pay such a price to help strangers. Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment. Senator, may I ask you something? How many ships did your government send to help the Volani? The alien looked uncomfortable. Well, none. But you must understand that the Republic cannot risk war with the Skarn over a world we barely know. And yet you expect us to walk away for the same reason? But you are from Earth, Senator Vorthak said, as if that explained everything. Your people are different. Surely even you must see that this is madness. The transmission ended before Admiral Choi could ask what the alien meant. He was beginning to notice a pattern in these conversations. Every alien government that contacted them seemed surprised that Earth was willing to fight the Skarn Empire. More than surprised, they seemed horrified. Lieutenant Yoon, bring up everything we have in our databases about how other species view humanity. Aye, Admiral. The information that appeared on his screen was limited. Earth had only been part of the galactic community for 30 years, and most of their contact had been through carefully managed diplomatic meetings and trade negotiations. But there were some interesting notes in the files compiled by their ambassadors and trade representatives. According to these reports, many alien species seemed unusually nervous around humans. They often made comments about human physical strength and reflexes that seemed complementary, but carried undertones of fear. Several species had declined invitations to visit Earth, citing concerns about the hazardous environment and extreme conditions. Admiral Choi had always assumed this was just normal caution about visiting an unfamiliar world. Every planet had its own dangers and unique conditions. But reading these reports again, he began to wonder if there was something more. Admiral, Master Sergeant Jang Ki-tae called from the Marine briefing area. We are receiving some strange communications on the general frequencies. Alien ships talking to each other about our fleet. What are they saying? Most of it is in languages our computers cannot translate, but we are picking up repeated references to Deathworlders and Terran predators. One transmission mentioned something about a pack hunt formation. Admiral Choi walked over to join the sergeant at his station. Are they talking about us? Yes, sir. And Admiral, they sound scared. Say. That moment, Lieutenant Yoon called out from her station. Admiral, we have an urgent transmission from the Galactic Council Emergency Committee. The alien that appeared on screen was unlike any they had seen before. It looked somewhat like a cross between an octopus and a tree, with multiple tentacles, that moved independently and skin that shifted color as it spoke. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo, this is Counselor Zenthak, speaking on behalf of the Emergency Committee. We understand you are leading a human fleet toward the Vellani system. That is correct, Counselor. Admiral, the committee has voted to offer Earth a formal role in the mediation process with the Skarn Empire. We believe a diplomatic solution can still be reached if all parties are willing to negotiate in good faith. How long would these negotiations take? Admiral Choi asked. Several months, perhaps longer. These matters require careful consideration and, Counselor, the Vellani, shields will fail in 2 days. Their people will be dead long before your negotiations begin. Admiral, surely you must understand that precipitous action could destabilize the entire region. The Skarn Empire is a major power with influence over dozens of systems. Open warfare between your species could have consequences none of us can predict. Are you asking us to abandon the Vellani? We are asking you to consider the greater good, Counselor Zenthak replied. The loss of one world is tragic, but it is preferable to a war that could consume hundreds of worlds. Admiral Choi felt something cold settle in his stomach. Counselor, are you saying the Galactic Council is willing to let an entire species die to avoid inconveniencing the Skarn Empire? We are saying that sometimes difficult choices must be made for the preservation of galactic peace. I see. Admiral Choi's voice was very quiet. Counselor, please record Earth's official response to your recommendation. I am listening, Admiral. Earth respectfully declines to abandon innocent people to murderers for the sake of political convenience. We will continue our mission as planned. The alien's skin shifted to darker colors. Admiral, you may not understand the full implications of what you are doing. The Skarn Empire is not some minor threat that can be easily dismissed. They have weapons and tactics that have proven effective against every species they have encountered. Then, they have never encountered humans. Admiral, please listen to me. Your people have a reputation among the galactic powers. There are stories told about your species and your world. Most of us hope these stories were exaggerations, but if they are true... The alien paused. If they are true, then what you are about to do could change everything. What stories? Admiral Choi asked. But the transmission ended without an answer, leaving the bridge crew staring at a blank screen. Admiral, Lieutenant Yoon said quietly, what do you think they meant about our reputation? Admiral Choi looked around at the faces of his officers. They were good people, professionals who had volunteered to serve their planet and protect innocent life. They were brave and skilled and dedicated. But looking at them now, he realized they might be something else as well. They might be exactly what the galaxy had always feared Earth would produce. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Cathara system like a storm breaking over a calm sea. 200 ships materialized in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming silver against the black of space. The massive carriers came first, followed by the sleek destroyers and the heavy battleships, with their bristling weapon arrays on every ship in the system, both Villani and Skarn. Alarm signals began to wail. Ambassador Thaisara was in the council chamber when the alerts began. She rushed to the viewing screen and gasped at what she saw. Ships were appearing in space faster than she could count them, each one larger and more impressive than anything the Villani had ever built. Even from this distance, she could see they were clearly designed for war. Are those the ones who answered? Our call? Elder Prathana asked in amazement. They must be, Thaisara replied, though she felt a chill of uncertainty. The ships looked nothing like the peaceful exploration vessels the Villani were used to seeing. These were predators, built for hunting and killing. On the Skarn command ship, Warlord Grextar watched the human arrival with growing unease. Intelligence reports were one thing, but seeing 200 warships appear in your star system was quite another. The human formation was unlike anything in Skarn tactical doctrine. Instead of the traditional battle line, they had arranged themselves in a complex three-dimensional pattern that covered multiple approach vectors simultaneously. Analysis? He demanded. The formation appears designed for rapid response to threats from any direction, reported his tactical officer. Each ship group can provide covering fire for the others while maintaining freedom of movement. It is highly sophisticated. What about their weapons? Unknown, sir. Energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases. We are detecting what appear to be kinetic accelerators, plasma projectors, and some kind of exotic particle beam system. Grextar nodded grimly. Send a message to the human fleet. Standard diplomatic protocols. The transmission that went out was formal and threatening, as was traditional for the Skarn Empire. Unknown vessels. You have entered Skarn territorial space without permission. Identify yourselves and state your business, or be destroyed. The response came back within minutes, and it was not what anyone expected. Captain Shin Dong-hyuk commanded the diplomatic escort vessel UEF Harmony, a small ship designed specifically for first contact situations. Unlike the massive warships surrounding it, the Harmony was sleek and peaceful looking, though it still carried enough weapons to defend itself if necessary. Skarn Fleet. This is Captain Shin Dong-hyuk of the United Earth Federation. We are here in response to a distress call from the Villani people. We request immediate cessation of hostilities and permission to provide humanitarian assistance. The reply from the Skarn was swift and angry. Earth vessel, you will withdraw immediately or face the consequences. This system is under Skarn jurisdiction, and your presence here is an act of war. Skarn Fleet. The Villani are a sovereign people on their own world. They have the right to request assistance from anyone they choose. We will not withdraw while innocent lives are in danger. Captain Shin looked at his communications officer, Dr. Lim Haewon, who had been monitoring all frequencies since they arrived. Any word from the Villani? Yes, sir. They are requesting permission to send a delegation to meet with us. They sound nervous. About us or the situation? Hard to tell, sir. Maybe both. An hour later, a small Villani shuttle approached the Harmony under heavy escort from human fighters. The alien vessel was beautiful, all flowing curves and crystal panels that caught the light of the twin suns. It looked more like a work of art than a spacecraft. The Villani delegation that came aboard was led by Ambassador Thaisara herself. She was tall and graceful, with pale blue skin and silver hair that moved like liquid mercury. Her large eyes held intelligence and desperation in equal measure. Captain Shin and Dr. Lim met them in the Harmony's main conference room, which had been decorated with flowers and soft music to make their guests feel welcome. It was a standard, first contact protocol designed to show peaceful intentions. The moment Ambassador Thaisara saw the humans, she froze. She had studied the basic anatomy reports that came with the response to their distress call, but seeing humans in person was completely different. They were shorter than Vellani, but much more heavily built, with dense muscle and bone structure that spoke of evolution on a high-gravity world. Their eyes faced forward like predators, and their teeth included prominent canines designed for tearing meat. Most disturbing of all was the way they moved. Even in this peaceful setting, there was something in their posture and gestures that suggested constant readiness for violence. It was subtle but unmistakable. These beings were dangerous. Ambassador. Thaisara, Captain Shin said with a warm smile. Welcome aboard the Harmony. I am Captain Shin Dong-hyuk, and this is Dr. Lim Hae-won, our cultural specialist. We are honored to meet you. The ambassador managed to find her voice. Captain Shin, we are grateful beyond words that you answered our call. But I must ask, are you truly here to help us? Dr. Lim leaned forward with concern. Of course we are here to help. Why would you think otherwise? Because you brought an armada, Thaisara said quietly. 200 warships to answer the call of strangers. This seems extreme. Captain Shin exchanged glances with Dr. Lim. Ambassador, your people are facing extinction. The Skarn Empire is preparing to destroy your entire civilization. Did you expect us to come with cargo ships and harsh language? We expected. Thaisara paused, realizing she had no idea what she had expected. We hoped someone would contact the Galactic Council or offer us refuge on another world, or perhaps provide defensive technology. We never imagined anyone would be willing to fight a war for complete strangers. Why not? Dr. Lim asked with genuine curiosity. Is that so unusual? Ambassador Thaisara stared at her. Dr. Lim, no species in the galaxy fights wars for strangers. The costs are too high and the risks too great. Even our closest allies have refused to help us because they fear Skarn retaliation. Then maybe it is time someone taught the Skarn Empire that there are consequences for murdering innocent people, Captain Shin said calmly. The casual way he spoke about war chilled Thaisara to her core. These humans discussed violence the way Vellani discussed mathematics, as a tool to solve problems. Captain, may I ask you about your world? Our databases have very little information about Earth. Dr. Lim smiled. Earth is a beautiful planet with a wide variety of climates and environments. We have oceans and mountains, forests and deserts, polar ice caps and tropical islands. The gravity is about 1.2 times what you experience here on Cathara. That seems quite strong. It is within normal parameters for inhabited worlds, Captain Shin replied. What else would you like to know? Are all of your people warriors? Warriors? Captain Shin seemed confused. No, of course not. Most humans are farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, artists, scientists. Only a small percentage serve in the military. But you fight so casually, Thaisara said. You speak of war as if it were a normal part of life. War is never normal, Dr. Lim said seriously. But sometimes it is necessary. When someone stronger attacks someone weaker for no good reason, decent people have an obligation to intervene. Even if it means your own people might die? Especially then, Captain Shin replied. What would be the point of being strong if we only use that strength to protect ourselves? Ambassador Thaisara was quiet for a long moment. These humans were unlike any species she had ever encountered. They seemed genuinely kind and peaceful, but underneath that kindness was something that made her instincts scream warnings. Captain, I must ask you something directly. Are your people planning to conquer our world after you drive off the Skarn? Captain, Shin looked shocked. Ambassador, we would never do such a thing. The Vellani are a free people on their own world. We are here to protect your freedom, not take it away. Then what do you want in return for your help? Nothing. Nothing. Nothing, Dr. Lim confirmed. We do not trade lives for profit. If we can help, we help. If we can protect the innocent, we protect them. That is what decent beings do. Thaisara felt tears begin to form in her large eyes. I do not understand. How can a species survive with such idealism? Captain Shin suggested gently. Weakness? She whispered. Dr. Lim reached across the table and took the ambassador's hand. Her grip was warm and reassuring, but Thaisara could feel the incredible strength in those fingers. Strength that could easily crush bone, but was being used only for comfort. Ambassador, we are not weak. We are strong enough to be kind. There is a difference. At that moment, the ship's communication system activated. Captain Shin to the bridge immediately. Priority 1. Excuse me, Ambassador. Dr. Lim will continue our conversation. Captain Shin hurried to the bridge where his tactical officer was studying the displays with a worried expression. Report. Sir, the Skarn are moving additional ships into position around the planet. It looks like they are preparing to begin planetary bombardment. Timeline? Best estimate, 6 hours. Captain Shin nodded grimly. Send a message to Admiral Choi. Tell him we have attempted diplomatic contact with both sides. The Villani are genuine. Refugees requesting assistance. The Skarn appear committed to genocide. Yes, sir. And Captain? The battle for Cathara began exactly 1 hour after Captain Shin's ultimatum expired. The Skarn had refused to withdraw, and Warlord Grextar had positioned his ships in a traditional siege formation around the planet. It was a formation that had worked on 47 other worlds, designed to rain destruction down on population centers until the defenders surrendered. The humans had other ideas. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo stood on the bridge of the Indomitable and watched his tactical display with calm concentration. The Skarn fleet was impressive, nearly 300 ships arranged in textbook formation around Cathara. They outnumbered the human fleet and had the advantage of position. Any conventional military force would have been forced to either withdraw or accept devastating losses in a frontal assault. Earth's military doctrine was anything but conventional. Flight Commander Baek Soo-jin, launch all fighter squadrons. Execute pattern Zulu. Aye, Admiral. All squadrons launching now. From the bellies of the human carriers, 1,000 small fighters erupted into space like angry hornets from a disturbed nest. But instead of charging directly at the enemy formation, they scattered in what looked like random directions, disappearing into the asteroid belt that ringed the Cathara system. On the Skarn command ship, Warlord Grextar watched the human fighters disperse with confusion. What are they doing? That formation makes no tactical sense. Unknown, sir, his tactical officer replied. Perhaps they are retreating? Grextar shook his massive head. No. Humans do not retreat. There is something else happening here. He was right. In the asteroid belt, Flight Commander Baek Soo-jin was coordinating the most complex fighter operation in human history. Each squadron had taken position behind a different asteroid, using the massive rocks as cover while they prepared for something the Skarn had never seen before. All squadrons report ready, came the voice of Squadron Leader Han Ji-won over the communications net. Execute on my mark, Baek replied. Remember, we only get one chance at this. 3, 2, 1, mark. 1,000 human fighters suddenly accelerated out of the asteroid belt toward the Skarn fleet. But they were not flying, in formation or following predictable attack vectors. Instead, each pilot was flying independently, using the enhanced reflexes and spatial awareness that came from evolving on a high-gravity world to thread between enemy ships in patterns that seemed impossible. The Skarn point defense systems had been designed to track and destroy enemy fighters following standard attack patterns. They were not prepared for pilots who could make instantaneous course corrections while flying at combat speed, who could slip between overlapping fields of fire and strike targets from unexpected angles. Squadron Leader Han Ji-won led her fighters in a diving attack on a Skarn battleship, her enhanced reflexes allowing her to dodge energy beams that would have vaporized a slower pilot. Behind her, 12 fighters followed in a loose formation that looked chaotic, but was actually a carefully choreographed dance of destruction. Target their shield generators, she called over the comm. Remember what we learned about their technology from the intercepted transmissions. The Skarn shields were powerful, but they had a weakness that human engineers had identified within hours of studying enemy communications. The generators were positioned to protect against attacks from the same plane as the enemy fleet, not from above and below where no sane pilot would attack. Han Ji-won was not sane by galactic standards. None of the human pilots were. She rolled her fighter into a vertical dive that put crushing G-forces on her body, forces that would have killed most alien pilots, but only made her more alert and focused. The Skarn gunners tried to track her movement, but their targeting systems could not keep up with the radical course changes she was making. Her missiles struck the shield generator array just as she pulled out of the dive, and the battleship's protective barrier collapsed. Instantly, 20 more fighters swarmed over the helpless vessel like predators taking down wounded prey. Across the battlefield, the same scene was playing out dozens of times. Human pilots were flying attack patterns that violated every rule of space combat, using their enhanced reflexes and gravity-trained endurance to achieve things that should have been impossible. Report from Fighter Command, Lieutenant Yoon called from her station. 47 enemy ships have lost shield protection and are taking heavy damage. Admiral Choi nodded approvingly. Phase 2. Colonel Bang Min-soo, you are cleared for orbital assault. Understood, Admiral. Assault teams launching now. While the Abo-Sai fighters kept the Skarn fleet distracted, human assault ships were launching from the larger vessels. These ships were smaller than destroyers, but larger than fighters, and they carried elite Marines trained in zero-gravity combat. Their mission was not to fight the enemy fleet directly, but to capture key vessels and turn the Skarn's own weapons against them. Major Han Ji-won led the first boarding party toward a disabled Skarn cruiser. Her assault ship was moving so fast that enemy sensors barely had time to detect it before it was docking with the alien vessel. Remember your briefings, she told her Marines as they prepared to breach the enemy hull. Skarn are larger and stronger than humans, but slower to react. Use your speed and coordination to overwhelm them before they can organize resistance. The breach charges exploded, and 20 human Marines poured into the Skarn ship like a force of nature. The alien crew was caught completely off guard. No enemy had ever boarded a Skarn vessel during combat before. Corporal Go Sung-min was the first through the breach, his enhanced combat reflexes allowing him to target 3 Skarn warriors before they could bring their weapons to bear. Behind him, his squad mates moved with the coordinated precision of pack hunters, covering each other's movements and advancing through the ship with deadly efficiency. The Skarn had been bred for conquest and were individually stronger than humans, but they fought as individuals. The humans fought as a coordinated unit, each Marine knowing exactly where his teammates were and what they were doing without needing to communicate. Bridge secured, Major Han reported over the comm. Beginning download of tactical information. Engineering. Secured, came another voice. Taking control of ship's weapon systems. Within 15 minutes, the Skarn cruiser was under human control and turning its guns on its former allies. The alien crew that survived the boarding action could only watch in stunned disbelief as their own ship began destroying other Skarn vessels. But the most devastating human tactic was yet to come. Admiral, called the sensor operator, Major Han Ji-won is requesting permission to implement Protocol 7. Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment. Protocol 7 was the most dangerous maneuver in the human tactical manual, something that no other species would ever attempt because the risks were too great. Granted, he said quietly. Tell her to make it count, Major Han Ji-won was leading her stealth squadron toward the Skarn command ship using a tactic that Earth's military called riding the lightning. The human ships were actually flying inside the energy beams being fired by Skarn weapons, using the electromagnetic disturbance to mask their approach. It was a maneuver that required split-second timing and reflexes that bordered on the superhuman. The margin for error was measured in milliseconds, and a single mistake would mean instant death. No alien species had ever developed such a tactic because no alien species was crazy enough to try it. Steady, Major Han whispered to her pilots as they rode a massive energy beam toward its source. The beam was powerful enough to destroy a small moon, but by staying exactly in its center, the human ships were invisible to enemy sensors. They emerged from the beam directly in front of the Skarn command ship's main bridge. The alien gunners had less than 2 seconds to react before human assault pods were crashing through the armored hull. Warlord Grextar was reviewing battle reports when the explosions began around him. He spun around to see human warriors emerging from holes in his bridge walls, moving with a speed and coordination that seemed almost supernatural. How? he roared. Raising his weapon, the human warrior who answered him was small by Skarn standards, but there was something in her eyes that made the veteran warlord hesitate. She moved like liquid death, her weapon tracking multiple targets simultaneously while she spoke. "Because you made us angry," Major Hans said simply, and then the bridge erupted in gunfire. The battle for the command ship was brief, but incredibly violent. The Skarn fought with the fury of cornered predators, but the humans fought with the calculated precision of apex predators who had learned their trade on the most dangerous world in the galaxy. When the shooting stopped, Warlord Grextar found himself looking up at the small human female who had led the assault. He was wounded but alive, his massive form propped against the ruins of his command console. "You fight like demons," he gasped. "We fight like humans," Major Han replied. "There is a difference." "What? What do you want from us?" "We want you to leave. Take your ships and go back where you came from. Never threaten the Villani again. And if we refuse?" Major Han looked around at the destruction on the bridge, then back at the defeated warlord. "Then we will show you what humans do to people who murder children." There was something in her voice that made Grextar's blood run cold. He had been a warrior for 40 years and had seen every kind of violence the galaxy could produce. 3 weeks after the Battle of Cathara, Dr. Yu Min-jung stood in what had once been a Skarn prisoner camp and watched her medical teams work miracles. The human field hospital had been set up in the ruins of the alien detention center, and the contrast could not have been more stark. Where the Skarn had built crude cages designed to break the spirit of their captives, the humans had erected clean white tents filled with the most advanced medical technology Earth could provide. Where the Skarn had offered only fear and despair, the humans brought hope and healing. "Doctor, we have another group of refugees coming in from the northern continent," Nurse Lee Hyejin reported. 43 Villani, mostly children, suffering from malnutrition and trauma. "Set up beds in Tent 7, Dr. Yu replied. "And make sure they get the full psychological evaluation. These people have been through hell." The Villani refugees watched the human medical teams with a mixture of gratitude and bewilderment. These same beings who had destroyed the mighty Skarn fleet were now spending their time caring for alien children and treating infected wounds with infinite patience. Elder Prathana approached Dr. Yu as she finished examining a young Villani who had been injured during the siege. The alien leader moved slowly, still recovering from her own ordeal in Skarn captivity. "Dr. Yu, I must ask you something that has been troubling me." "Of course, Elder. What can I help you with?" "Your people fight like demons when threatened, but care for the wounded like angels of mercy. How is this possible?" Dr. Yu smiled as she cleaned her hands. "Elder, on Earth we have a saying, the same fire that melts butter can forge steel. Humans are capable of great violence when we must protect the innocent, but we are also capable of great compassion when the fighting is done. They are not opposite traits. They are the same trait applied to different situations. But your warriors," Elder Prathana said, "I have seen the battle recordings. They fought with such fury. How do they return to normal life after such things?" "Very carefully," Dr. Yu replied honestly. "War leaves scars on everyone who participates in it. That is why we work so hard to avoid it when possible, and why we try to help our people heal when it is necessary." At that moment, Major Han Ji-won entered the medical tent. She had come to check on her Marines who were volunteering to help with the refugee efforts. The same woman who had led the assault on the Skarn command ship was now helping Villani children learn to read human picture books. "Major, how are your people adjusting?" Dr. Yu asked. "Better than I expected," Han replied. "Corporal Go has become quite popular with the younger refugees. Apparently, his terrible singing voice reminds them of some kind of Villani comfort sound." Elder Prathana watched this exchange with growing amazement. "You speak so casually of your warriors caring for children. Is this normal for your people?" "What else would they do?" Major Han asked with genuine confusion. "The fighting is over. Now we help people rebuild their lives. But surely your soldiers want to go home? To celebrate their victory?" Major Han was quiet for a moment. "Elder, there is nothing to celebrate about war. We won because we had to win. But victory in battle is not something humans take pride in. We take pride in protecting people who cannot protect themselves. Across the galaxy, word of the Battle of Cathara was spreading like wildfire. In the halls of the Galactic Council, emergency sessions were being called to discuss the implications of human military capabilities. In alien military academies, tactical instructors were completely revising their curricula to account for combat doctrines that no one had ever imagined on the industrial world of Zentaris Prime. General Quan Jae-sung was meeting with representatives from 7 different alien governments. They had requested this conference to discuss mutual security arrangements and technological cooperation. But everyone knew what they really wanted. They wanted to know if Earth would protect them too. General Quan, said Ambassador Vorthak, of the Zenthi Republic, my government is very interested in establishing closer ties with Earth. We believe our peoples could benefit greatly from increased cooperation. What kind of cooperation did you have in mind? General Quan asked politely. Well, the Zenthi Republic has been experiencing some difficulties with raiders along our border worlds. Nothing as serious as what the Villani faced, of course, but still quite troubling. And you would like Earth to help with this raider problem? If it would not be too much trouble, Ambassador Vorthak said hopefully. General Quan looked around the conference table at the other alien representatives. They were all watching him with barely concealed desperation. For centuries, the smaller galactic civilizations had lived in fear of stronger neighbors like the Skarn Empire. The Galactic Council had proven useless at protecting anyone, and most species lacked the military capability to defend themselves. Now, suddenly, there was a new player in the game. A species that could face down the most powerful military force in the galaxy and crush it in a matter of hours. A species that seemed willing to fight for strangers without asking for anything in return. The government of Earth will consider all legitimate requests for assistance, General Quan said carefully. However, I must stress that we will not intervene in internal conflicts or territorial disputes between established governments. Our mandate is to protect innocent people from aggression, not to take sides in political disagreements. Of course, Ambassador Vorthak said quickly. We would never ask you to do anything improper. But General Quan could see the calculation in the alien's eyes. Earth had just become the most sought-after ally in the galaxy, and every species was trying to figure out how to get on humanity's good side. At the same time, in a secure facility on Mars, Ambassador Ryu Yunseo was meeting with Earth's top military and political leaders to discuss the rapidly changing galactic situation. The requests are pouring in, she reported. 17 different governments have asked for mutual defense pacts. 23 species want to establish trade relationships. And we are getting reports that several hostile powers are forming new alliances specifically to counter what they see as the human threat. President Kim Woo-jin leaned back in her chair. What is your assessment of the situation, Ambassador? Sir, whether we like it or not, Earth has just become a major galactic power. Our intervention at Cathara has changed the balance of power in this region of space. Everyone is recalculating their strategies based on what they think we might do next, and what do they think we might do. That depends on which species you ask, Ambassador Ryu replied. The smaller civilizations see us as potential protectors. The larger powers see us as potential threats. And everyone is trying to figure out if the Battle of Cathara was a one-time event or a demonstration of capabilities we are prepared to use again. Admiral Choi Hyun-woo spoke up from his position at the tactical display. Sir, our intelligence indicates that at least 3 major powers are already beginning military buildups in response to our actions. The Corvan Alliance has tripled their defense spending. The Altuvian Federation is developing new weapons specifically designed to counter human tactics. And there are reports that remnants of the Skarn Empire are seeking allies for a revenge campaign. So by saving the Villani, we may have started a galactic arms race, President Kim said thoughtfully. It appears so, sir. President Kim was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. Earth had acted from the highest moral principles. They had saved an innocent species from genocide. But good intentions did not always lead to good outcomes. What would you recommend, Admiral? Sir, we need to be very careful about how we proceed. We cannot abandon our principles, but we also cannot ignore the reality that our actions have consequences for the entire galaxy. And what are our principles? President Kim asked. That innocent people have the right to live free from fear, Admiral Choi replied without hesitation. That stronger nations have an obligation to protect weaker ones. That genocide is always wrong, regardless of politics or convenience. Then we continue as we began, President Kim decided. We will help those who need help, protect those who need protection, and deal with the consequences as they arise. Meanwhile, on Cathara, the reconstruction efforts continued, under human supervision. The Skarn had done tremendous damage during their occupation, but human engineering teams were working around the clock to repair the worst of it. Vellani historian Velthorn stood in the ruins of the Great Library and watched human technicians carefully restore ancient Vellani texts that had been damaged during the bombardment. The irony was not lost on him. The same species that had brought such destruction to the Skarn fleet was now painstakingly preserving Vellani culture with infinite care, historian Velthorn. The voice belonged to Lieutenant Colonel Park So-young, the human officer in charge of cultural restoration. Yes, Colonel? We have recovered another cache of documents from the archives. Would you like to examine them to determine their historical significance? Velthorn looked at the human officer with wonder. Colonel, why do your people care so much about our history? You have saved our lives and our freedom. Why also save our books? Because a people without their history are not really free, Colonel Park replied. The Skarn wanted to erase your culture as well as your lives. We want to make sure that never happens.